How's it going, my peeps? It is now time for the Raw results slash highlights and review video. I'll go over the results, some of the highlights in my opinion, and give you guys my thoughts, my review on the show. So it kicks off with Daniel Bryan's music hitting actually, but instead of Bryan coming out, it's Stephanie McMahon doing the yes chant. And basically, she talks about how successful SummerSlam was, how great of a pay-per-view it was, and how some people thought it was actually better than WrestleMania. She goes over the events that happened at SummerSlam, and she says that the biggest loser of the night was Brie Bella. And she also announces that later tonight they'll present the new WWE World Heavyweight Champion with a new championship. And then afterwards, she also, plugs the WWE Network, saying that people can see her victory over Brie for only $9.99. So anyway, she brings out Nikki Bella, and Nikki explains her actions. Basically, she says that she didn't turn on Brie. Brie turned on her, because it's always been about Brie, and Brie's selfish. She says that whenever they got in trouble, she'd be the one to get blamed. She even, disses Daniel Bryan, this is Brie for marrying him. And she says, you could say that, lost a sister, but she says she doesn't consider Brie a sister. And then eventually Brie comes out, and she says, the family's devastated about this, but, she can still forgive Nikki and all that. And then Nikki, just like at SummerSlam, hits Brie right in the face, and she tells her, well, she won't forgive her. And then she leaves Brie Bella crying in the ring. Following that, it's the first match of the night. Erick, Rowan, Luke Harper versus Big Show and Mark Henry. And Henry and Show pick up another win when Big Show, Luke Harper and Erick Rowan were trying to do a double T move on Mark Henry. It's their, the move they do where it's kind of like a chokeslam, but not really because they lift him up from under their arm or from their armpit or whatever. And Big Show came in and stopped that when he hit the knockout punch on Luke Harper. And then Erick Rowan charged Big Show as well. So Big Show hit him with the knockout punch. And then Rowan turns around right into the World's Strongest Slam. Henry pins him, and Big Show and Henry win. Afterwards, it's announced that The Miz will be invoking his rematch clause tonight for the Intercontinental Championship. So it's going to be Dolph versus Miz once again. And then we see Ric Flair talking with Dolph, congratulating him on his win. And then The Miz appears, and Ric Flair's like, really? Really? Mocking The Miz's old catchphrase. And so The Miz tells Dolph that tonight the Intercontinental Championship comes back to an A-lister. And then Dolph says, you're not an A-lister, Miz, you're an A-hole. And then Dolph and Ric Flair laugh and laugh, does the woo! I thought it was a nice segment. And then afterwards, Renee Young interviews Seth Rollins. They talk about the match last night against Ambrose, and Seth Rollins says that last night's victory over Ambrose proves that not only is he a future WWE World Heavyweight Champion, but he's also the future of the entire WWE. And then all of a sudden, you see a bucket of water with ice poured on Seth Rollins. And then once he turns around and looks to see who it is, it's Dean Ambrose, and he gives a slick, and he's like, what? It's for charity. And then he hits Seth Rollins with the bucket, and they start fighting it out. But then they eventually get separated, and once they come back from commercial break, Seth Rollins is complaining to Triple H and Kane about Ambrose, and they need to take care of him. So Triple H announces that tonight he'll be facing off against Ambrose once again. So he's going to give him the opportunity to, finally get rid of Ambrose. And Seth Rollins asks if it's going to be another lumberjack match. And Triple H says no, because the people like Ambrose. So what he's going to do is he's going to let the WWE Universe pick the match. So that way the blood is on their hands when Seth Rollins, gets rid of Ambrose tonight. And then afterwards we get Natalya versus Paige. And before the match starts, Paige says that despite what people think, she loves AJ, and in fact, she's going to dedicate this match to AJ. So the match starts, and shortly after it starts, AJ's music hits, and she comes skipping down the ramp, and skipping around the ring. That distracts Paige, and allows Natalya to roll up Paige for the 3 count to win the match. After the match is over, AJ grabs the microphone, and she tells Paige that, hey, she loves her too, and that she wants to dedicate her life to Paige, and she wants to get in that ring to shake Paige's hand. So she gets in the ring, but then Paige right away runs away, gets out of the ring, And then they have a stare down. Triple H and Stephanie McMahon then come out to present the new WWE Championship, or WWE World Heavyweight Championship, to Brock Lesnar. So they show the championship first. It's basically the WWE Championship, but instead of the old logo, it's the new logo. And they introduce Brock Lesnar. Brock comes out, and then they take a couple pictures with the championship. Paul Heyman, Brock holding the championship, Triple H, and Stephanie. They take pictures from every side of the ring, and then Triple H and Stephanie leave, and Paul Heyman proceeds to cut once again another amazing promo talking about the match. You know, how Brock is a beast and all his challengers, you know, are simply men. And he gives props to John Cena for never giving up, just like he says. And he says, you know, anybody else would have tapped out, would have given up, would have thrown in the towel, but John Cena, he didn't. And even says his kids or his grandkids are fans of John Cena, and that pisses him off. But, yeah, in the end, he says, he actually promoted the WWE Network, too, saying if you're too cheap to, you know, pay $9.99 and didn't see what happened last night, he's gonna sum it up. He says it was eat, sleep, suplex, repeat. Eat, sleep, suplex, repeat. Suplex, repeat. He says suplex, repeat a bunch of times. Because, you know, Brock Lesnar suplexed John Cena 16 times last night at SummerSlam. And then he also says eat, sleep, F5, repeat. And in the end, he says eat, sleep, conquer John Cena. And also, one of the funniest parts in that promo was, you know how Paul Heyman always says, my client's Brock Lesnar? Well, when he said that, Brock Lesnar went ahead and told Paul Heyman, you know, I love it when you say that. Say that again, please. And then Paul Heyman repeated, Brock Lesnar. I like it too. Whenever the way he says Brock Lesnar, and when he says my client, and then Brock Lesnar. But yeah, that was, for some reason, I thought that was funny. Anyways, after that, it was time for the Intercontinental Championship match between Dolph Ziggler and The Miz. And the match ends when The Miz has the figure 4 locked in. He's got it locked in for a while, but eventually Dolph gets to the ropes and he rolls onto the apron. So now Dolph's on the apron, and Miz goes after him, and Dolph hits him with a super kick. And due to that super kick, Dolph falls onto the apron and falls to the floor, and The Miz is out in the ring. So referee starts counting out Dolph, and Dolph gets counted out for the count of 10. So The Miz wins via count out, and then they announce, but still champion Dolph Ziggler, so that angers The Miz. And Miz goes ahead and attacks Dolph. He puts him back in the ring, but then Dolph goes for a super kick, so Miz quickly turns around, and Dolph follows it up with the zigzag. And then after that, we get Renee Young interviewing Jack Swagger, and they show what happened last night, where Rusev won, and after the match, and I forgot to mention this in my review video, but after the match, Rusev super kicked Zeb Coulter, so Zeb Coulter this time around isn't with Jack Swagger, and Renee Young asks Swagger how he feels. You know, he says, yeah, you know, he failed to get the victory last night, but you know, as an American, he's not giving up, and he's going to pick himself back up again. And then he goes out to the ring for a match, and the match ends up being against Cesaro, and surprisingly, Swagger lost. Because, you know, I was expecting Cesaro to lose, because he's on this losing streak, but, yeah, Cesaro picked up the win when, first off, Swagger locked in the Patriot Lock from the apron, and Cesaro was in the ring, and so he had to break the hold before the count of 5, and then he gets back in the ring and locks it in once again. But this time, Cesaro gets to the ropes, and once again, he has to let go of the hold before 5, so he does let go. But then Cesaro rakes him in the eyes, and then he follows that up with the neutralizer and picks up the win. After the match, Cesaro, I believe, even mocked Cesaro doing the We the People, and then Bo Dallas comes out, and he cuts a promo telling Swagger, last night you disappointed 318 million people. When you lost your match against Rusev, you also lost your manager, and you lost your dignity, but You can get it all back if you just believe. And then we get Renee Young interviewing Chris Jericho. He talks about how Bray last night during the match said that he's already dead. And Jericho says, you know, that's because Bray Wyatt is dead inside. And then he also talks about, you know, how he's got the greatest fans in the whole world that'll chant Y2J, Y2J no matter what. That they'll always have his back no matter what, and nobody can take that from him. And then following that, it's a 6-man tag team match. Roman Reigns, Sheamus, and Rob Van Dam versus Randy, Curtis Axel, and Ryback. And it ended up being a really good tag team match. And the guy that was most over in the matchup, the one that the crowd was most behind, was Ryback. That's right, that's because they're in Las Vegas, and Ryback is from Las Vegas. So they were chanting, "We want Ryback, we want Ryback, we want the big guy," you know, when Ryback was on the apron. And then once he got tagged in, they were chanting, "Feed me more." Actually, they were chanting "Feed me more" before he even got tagged in. And they even chanted "Ryback rules." They really wanted to see Ryback, and they were chanting for Ryback more than anybody else. Now, towards the end of the match, this is where it really got crazy, is Rob Van Dam hits the split-legged moonsault on Curtis Axel, and Ryback breaks the pin, and then Sheamus hits the brogue kick on Ryback. Randy comes in, hits an RKO on Sheamus. Reigns comes in, hits a spear on Randy, and then RVD hits a kick on Curtis Axel, follows it up with the 5-star frog splash, and gets the win. It's nice to see RVD pick up some wins here and there. I know he picked up a win at SummerSlam, but he's been losing, I think, more than he's been winning since coming back. So cool to see RVD pick up the win here. I was expecting Reigns or Randy to pick up the win. Afterwards, we see Randy walking backstage, and Ric Flair wants to talk to him, but Randy tells him to get out of his way, or he's going to show him why they used to call him the Legend Killer. And then, following that, Bray Wyatt cuts a promo on Jericho, saying that he's the new face of salvation. And then we get the Usos coming out for a matchup, and their opponents end up being Stardust and Goldust, who actually pick up the win with a roll-up. Stardust picks up the win for the team. And then we get Rusev and Lana coming out for a promo, and before they could talk too much, Mark Henry comes out, and I was surprised because I was thinking they were going to have Henry and Show focus on the tag team title scene, especially with them, you know, beating the Wyatt family on both SmackDown and Raw. But, yeah, it's just Mark Henry coming out on his own, and basically he says, you know, it happened last night with them, you know, raising up the flag in his country. That pissed him off. He says he represented, you know, the USA in the Olympics twice. And he calls Lana and Rusev jackasses, and when Lana tries to yell at Henry or talk at Henry, Henry yells at her, and he's like, "I'm not talking to you." And anyways, he says he's going to induct Rusev into the Hall of Pain, and then they have a stare down. And I was expecting Rusev to just, you know, leave, but he actually goes for the punch. He punches Henry a couple times, and then he goes for a kick, but Henry pretty much pushes Rusev's leg aside, and then he hits him with the World's Strongest Slam, and after that, he hits a World's Strongest Splash on Rusev, and then his music hits, and that's it. It was a pretty cool segment. So after that, it's time for Ambrose versus Rollins, and the fans get to choose the stipulation. The choices were Falls Count Anywhere, No Holds Barred, and No DQ. Personally, I picked Falls Count Anywhere. I mean, why not? It's the best choice out of the three, because it's the same thing as No Holds Barred and No DQ, except they can get the pinfall and submission anywhere. So, Falls Count Anywhere actually ends up winning, which I was happy about. And, you know, I didn't think it was going to win, because I remember, like, last time, one of those, you know, in one of those matches where the fans get to choose the stipulation, it was a similar situation to this one, where there was a Falls Count Anywhere match as an option, and there was also like a street fight, and the people picked street fight, which I still to this day I don't get, because why? I mean, why? Falls Count Anywhere is the same thing as a street fight, except you can get the submission and pinfall anywhere in the arena, not just inside the ring. But anyways, this time, Falls Count Anywhere does win. So then Ambrose and Rollins proceed to have another amazing match. If you thought yesterday's match was great, this one I think was even better. Now, some of the spots in the match. You had Dean Ambrose going for his clothesline. But last night at SummerSlam, first off, Seth Rollins hit a ninjaguri on Dean Ambrose, and Dean Ambrose responded to that by bouncing back off the ropes and hitting a clothesline. Well, this time around, Dean Ambrose went for that clothesline, but Seth Rollins caught him and stopped him with that same enziguri from last night. And there was another spot where Dean Ambrose went for dirty deeds, but Seth Rollins got out of it, and then he kicked Ambrose in the gut. He went for the curb stomp, but Dean Ambrose dodged it, and then Dean Ambrose bounced off the ropes, and Seth Rollins did the same, but on the other side, and then they met with a double crossbody. Both of them get taken down. And then Ambrose grabs a bunch of chairs, he puts them all in the middle of the ring, and I mean a lot of chairs, and he tries to go for a superplex onto the chairs, but Rollins, I believe he raked Dean Ambrose's eyes, and instead, he went for a powerbomb on Ambrose onto the chairs, and he hit it. He went for the cover, and Ambrose kicked out. And after that, Kane eventually got involved when Dean Ambrose set up a table. And he hit a superplex from the superplex onto the table, through the table. And that's when Kane gets on the apron and he tries to stop Ambrose, but Ambrose pushes him off the apron, and then he grabs Rollins and he throws Rollins out of the ring, and he hits a suicide dive on both Rollins and Kane. And at this point, the crowd's going crazy. Ambrose then puts Rollins back in the ring, and he hits the clothesline where he bounces off in the middle of the ropes. He hits it, Rollins sells it perfectly, and he does a flip, and then Dean Ambrose follows that up with dirty deeds. He covers him, 1, 2, but because he's so close to the ropes, or his feet are close to the ropes, you're expecting Kane to pull Ambrose out of the ring, and he does just that. But then Kane charges Ambrose, and Ambrose takes him down onto the steel steps. Seth Rollins then charges Ambrose as well, but Ambrose backdrops him into the crowd. He throws Kane over the announcer's table, and then he brings Seth Rollins onto the announcer's table, and he tries to go for dirty deeds on the table. But Kane gets up, and he grabs Ambrose by the throat, stopping him from hitting dirty deeds. And then it looked like it was gonna go for a chokeslam on Ambrose, with Ambrose on the announcer's table, and Kane right below the announcer's table, standing on the floor. But instead, he grabs Ambrose, puts him back on the floor, and then he chokeslams Ambrose on the announcer's table. The table doesn't break. And then Seth Rollins follows that up with a curb stomp on the table, and the table doesn't break once again. But I don't think it was supposed to break, with the curb stomp. And after that, Rollins wasn't going for the cover or anything like that, and it's a false count anywhere match. Instead, he tells Kane to finish him off. So then Kane, takes out this table, I guess, that was, it wasn't, your typical table that gets broken, but it was like a regular table, and it was covering up some cinder blocks. So he takes it off, and then he grabs Ambrose and puts him on top of those cinder blocks. And then Rollins, who's on the announcer's table, hits the curb stomp on Ambrose onto the cinder blocks, and the cinder blocks break. And then the referee's like, you went over the line, and he stops the match, he rings the bell. And then Justin Roberts announces that the match has been, stopped, and the winner of the match is Seth Rollins. So, Rollins' music hits, and, that's it. Kane raises his hand, and that ends Raw. So, what did I think about Raw tonight? Highlights? Well, first off, I thought Raw tonight, I thought it was going to be an okay show. Up until 3 things that turned it from an okay show to a good show. And that was the 6-man tag team match, Reigns, Sheamus, and RVD versus Randy and Ryback. I didn't, expect great things from that tag team match, but it really was entertaining, and the crowd involvement in that match made it even more entertaining, especially with them really being behind Ryback and just being loud overall for the match. And I did like the ending sequence. On top, and also RVD picking up the win. On top of that, the segment between Henry and Rusev, I didn't expect to really like that segment either, but Henry really delivered in that segment, and I did like him, hitting the World's Strongest Slam on Rusev, and he followed it up with the splash. But it leaves me wondering if, we are gonna see Big Show and Henry as a tag team or not. Maybe he feuds with Rusev a little bit, and then he goes back to, tagging up with the Big Show. I'm not sure, but I did like that segment, and of course, the main event match between Ambrose and Rollins. That was great. That was a really, really good matchup. I thought this was better than last night's match, and last night's match was a great match. They really, first off, I'm glad that the fans picked Falls Count Anywhere, because I never understood why, people would pick a no holds barred, no DQ street fight over a Falls Count Anywhere. Where it pretty much shares the same rules. It has the same benefits where, there is no disqualification in countouts, but with Falls Count Anywhere, you do get the pinfalls and submissions on the outside as well, outside of the ring. And street fight, no holds barred, and no DQ is pretty much the same match type anyway, but, with a different name. And tonight, they did have no holds barred and no DQ in the pool, and those are pretty much the same match. Anyways, I also would have liked to see a Batista return. When Brock Lesnar was presented the new championship, I was hoping for Batista to make his return and challenge Brock or something like that. But maybe that's too soon right now after Brock's, domination of Cena at SummerSlam. But also, during the main event, when it came to Ambrose and Rollins, and Seth Rollins was about to hit the curb stomp on Ambrose on those cinder blocks, I was also hoping for Batista to return, save Ambrose, and take out Kane, neutralize Kane. But Batista did not return. Basically, I wanted to see Batista return, and I want to see that Batista versus Brock Lesnar match during Brock's reign as champion. Also, they announced that next week, John Cena will be present, or I'm not sure if they said he'll be present or not, but basically we're going to hear from John Cena. So, with him being back this soon, I'm not sure if he's going to be there live or, on the Titantron or something like that. I'm wondering if we're going to see the rematch between Brock and Cena as soon as Night of Champions, or Night of Champions, we get a new challenger. And with Jack Swagger now losing to Cesaro, with him saying, he's gonna, I guess, pick himself back up again, but then, he lost to Cesaro. I'm wondering where they're going with this. And I'm also wondering if this is the last we see of Ziv Coulter as Swagger's manager. I hope not, but I guess we'll have to wait and see for that. And also, man, we haven't seen the stable of Kofi Kingston, Big E, and Xavier Woods since the first night we saw him. Well, actually, we saw them, I think, the next week when they were, in front of the announcer's table watching the matchup the Usos had. But I hear that the stable is, no more, which sucks if that's true, because I really wanted to see that. Hopefully they go through with that stable. But with Big E, wrestling as a face again, and also, I believe Kofi wrestled on Main Event last week as a face, I'm thinking it's over when it comes to that stable. And what else do I want to say? And yeah, that's pretty much it. The biggest highlight of Raw tonight was, in my opinion, the Main Event match. But also, like I said, the 6-man tag team match, and the segment between Henry and Rusev. So, as far as a rating for tonight's show, I would give it a 7 to 7.5 on 10. Hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, as always, can click that like button down below. With that said, I'm out, guys. See ya.